forms like this when we have the NSA. Number two, we're being lied to. Every 10 years, we're being lied to. What I mean to say is this. Number 9 on the census form asks, what is person number 1's race? And it then proceeds to list several. White, black, American Indian, Asian Indian, Chinese, Filipino, Japanese, Korean, Vietnamese, Native Hawaiian, Guamanian, Samoan, other Pacific Islander, other Asian, etc. What if I told you that your race is a figment of your imagination? I want to share with you an article by New York Times reporter Nicholas Kristof. Is Race Real? By Nicholas Kristof. I had my DNA examined by a prominent genetic specialist here. And what do you know? It turns out I'm African American. The mitochondria in my cells show that I'm descended from a matriarch who lived in Africa, possibly in present-day Ethiopia or Kenya. Okay, this was 70,000 years ago, and she seems to be a common ancestor of all Asians as well as all Caucasians. Still, these kinds of DNA analysis illuminate the raging scientific debate about whether there is anything real to the notion of race. Kristof goes on to say, likewise, the New England Journal of Medicine once editorialized bluntly that race is biologically meaningless. Biologically meaningless. Not a figment of your imagination, but biologically meaningless. Which means that we created the notion of race. What is race? It's what we see when a white family chooses to adopt a black child, or the immigrant worker approaches from afar needing some help. It's what we see when the streets are littered with crime and the media chooses to report on it time after time. This notion of race belongs to us, the human race. It is our construct. And tonight in this room, there are more similarities among us than differences. So says Professor Alan R. Templeton, professor of biology at Washington University in St. Louis. Templeton says, there is more and more hard genetic evidence that all of humanity has evolved as a single unit, with regional variations, but that's all they are, slight variations. A race has to be a sharply defined, geographically circumscribed population that represents an isolated community, an isolated or nearly isolated lineage within the species. There's nothing at all like that in humanity. In terms of the living world, it's really hard to find a species so genetically homogeneous across its populations as humans. Templeton goes on to say, we need to look at these indicators of genetic differentiation directly and not just tied into skin color or race, because that's not actually the most reliable indicator of the differences. For instance, let's say you have a person from Micronesia who needs a transplant. These are people who have dark skin and resemble Western Africans. Yet genetically, the Micronesian is closer to a European than he is to an African. So the skin color here is not a reliable indicator. It's actually more important to find out a geographical ancestry than a donor's skin color. For instance, Tiger Woods is mostly Asian in his ancestry. If he should need a transplant someday, he will be more likely to match an Asian donor. In other words, you can't determine much about a person from their skin color. How true? Because as I speak to you all tonight, I'm encouraged by how true, because as I speak to you all tonight, How true, because as I speak to you all tonight, I don't see any races. Instead, I see something larger. It's in the encouragement I get from one toastmaster, almost like a mother to her son. It's in the words I hear from fathers and mothers, sisters and brothers alike. All of us in this room, we are all members of one family, the human race. So wouldn't it be better if we just gouged out our eyes for the common good? Maybe so, but then the notion of race would end. Thank you very much.
Awesome.